Now we're going to start talking about artificial intelligence. And I think a lot of folks get really hung up on AI and how your resume is handled via artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, about 85% of resumes never are seen by human eyes. And I think that's egregious. And if you haven't looked for a job in a while, like you're a more senior individual, and perhaps you haven't had to do a job search in 10, 15, 20 years, this is completely different. And I will tell you that whenever you come through our portal, we look at every single resume. But to be very honest, when we get positions from our clients, the first thing we do is use our applicant tracking system to scan resumes that match keywords. So this is really important. Once you've identified your perfect position, and your perfect company and perhaps the specifics that you're looking for today. Like, I want another senior CRA job, but I'd like to have something that gives me diversity in terms of therapeutics or whatever it is that you've outlined that you want. Then you need to start thinking about your how you're going to layer in your keywords on your resume. This is critical. When we're looking for, let's say, for example, a client says, I need an oncology CRA to handle MD Anderson. So the first thing we're going to do is, and if they give us the indications and the specifics of the oncology, is we're going to go and do that search in our applicant tracking system. The individuals that are close to MD Anderson that have all of those keywords are going to be the ones that we reach out to. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to post the job. We will. But if you live in Boston or you don't have oncology or whatever, you're not going to come up in our search. So even though we have thousands of CRAs in our database, and a lot of those are already qualified and ready for us to put our brand on, you may not even come up in the search because of the keyword matches. Now, doesn't mean that you don't have a second residence in the MD Anderson area, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have oncology. What it means is that it didn't pick up in your resume. And so that's where the scanning comes really, it very much, it's extremely important. And it comes in handy whenever you're populating it into your resume. So there's a couple of things you can do is whenever you do your base resume, you want to make sure that you're adding in those readable tables that outline all of your different varied experiences. Don't forget about a technology table or at least a bulleted list too. You've got rave, you got metadata, you got all of these different things that you may have, put them on there. Because again, there might be some clients, and we've had those. I need a client that knows Viva Vault. I got a TMF transfer I've got to do from another system, and they got to know Viva Vault. Well, I'm going to do a search for resumes that have Viva Vault in it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to reach out to you. It just means I'm going to reach out to those folks first. And so that is really, really important. And there's a strategy that you can take in order to make sure that your resume gets found. First of all, you know the industry and you know the lingo in the industry. And so you want to make sure that you're listing those specific lingos. If you're a clinical trial manager or a CRA manager, consider using different varied terms, because some companies might call somebody a clinical trial manager where another company might call that role a project manager. Another company might call that role clinical operations manager. Where appropriate, it might make sense, using that example, to put all of those terms into your resume. I've performed the role of a clinical operations manager for the project, blah, 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 even though your title might say clinical trial manager. And this, I think, answers one of the other questions is, okay, I've done a lot of leadership tasks, but my title is a senior CRA. Okay, well, your title is your title. So your title is senior clinical research associate, but in one of your bullets state, I perform the role of a lead clinical research associate on project XYZ, and I supervised this number of people, blah, blah, blah. It's important that you have those, because whenever we're doing the searches with the keywords, not only do we care about the therapeutics and maybe even the indications, but we do search for things like bachelor's, lead CRA, clinical trial manager, those types of terms as well. So it helps you just in a broad brush perspective to go ahead and start populating your resumes with specific keywords that you know are going to be relevant to the job and the company type that you're looking to be able to find. But here's the thing. I've heard these stories where individuals have spent all this time optimizing their resume with all these keywords, but you can over optimize. You can do what they call as keyword stuffing. And and while the artificial intelligence systems might still cause your resume to come up, when human eyes actually do look at your resume, it needs to make sense and it needs to be genuine. And now we're back to your story. Now we're back to the point of I served as a senior CRA for 5 years with company ABC. I was able to progress to a lot of leadership tasks because they trusted me. And so therefore I led Project ABC. I had X, Y. You're telling a story, right? And I think what happens here is a lot of individuals feel that the resume is such a formal document that you don't have the leeway to tell a story, but you do. You've got the opportunity to be able to tell people, I did this, and this is the reason why I progressed. Or, by the way, this is the reason why I left. There's nothing wrong with putting those types of details into your resume so that when human eyes see your resume, they hear your story and they start feeling connected to you because this is, after all, a personal industry, isn't it? So, you want to be able to show soft skills and hard skills. The competencies are easy. Any of you guys that have gone through our qualification process knows that we do a pre-qualification that asks you the how many years you've done it questions. Those are easy. 4 years of oncology, 3 years of cardiovascular, 2 years of this, 5 years of that, whatever it is. Those are easier to articulate, and you should. You should put those on your resume and keep them updated. But the soft skills are what's going to get you to end game, especially in today's market. So, because the soft skills are what tells me not only how many years you've done the work, but how good you are at it. And the fact that you can take tangible information and apply it into a situation that sometimes can be a very difficult situation. And so I've given you a couple of examples because the soft skills are going to be what makes or breaks your resume when human eyes actually get to it. And here's a really key example: strong leadership. I see this all the time. I have strong leadership skills. Okay, so is that just a buzzword that you put on your resume, or do you actually have strong leadership skills? Because, I mean, I've got 50 people I need to interview and I've only got one position. Who am I going to select? Well, I'm going to select the person to interview that basically tells me why he or she believes they have strong leadership skills. So it could be something like I managed a team of 6, or I did this, or I managed this project. You want to use action verbs that speak to what you've done in a leadership capacity. And so things like I delegated, I led, I managed, I created, I did whatever I needed to do. Make sure that these are filtered throughout your resume. You can have it in the professional summary, you can have it down in the actual positions. I think it's important that you layer these in with the soft skills. So think about what soft skills CRAs absolutely need to have in order to be effective CRAs. Leadership's clearly one of them. Time management and organizational skills is another one. Negotiation skills is another one. Being able to foster effective relationships, critically important. So you can start coming up with these skills that you in the industry need to be effective in your role, and make sure that you're articulating how you've exhibited those in your past positions, because this is going to make you stand out from someone else who just says was responsible for PSVs, SIVs, IMVs, and COVs. Okay, well, sounds a lot better. I was responsible for helping to lead the team to complete 50 pre-qualification visits within a 2-week time period. I mentored X number of people. I did this while I was. This is how I accomplished the goal. That's a lot more powerful than saying I have experience doing PSVs while I worked at Icon. This is how you stand out whenever it comes to the specific details of your quantifying and qualifying your hard skills and your soft skills. And this is what makes you stand out. It's really, really important to be able to do this on your resume. Okay. So then the other thing that you want to do is whenever you've got some human eyes on your resume is, again, make sure you're sharing your personality and you're telling the story. It's so really, really important. It's not supposed to be a bland resume. 10, 15 years ago, absolutely. Today, no. You want them to go, wow, this is really cool. I love what they accomplished there and I love where they're going here. You want them to be able to see that in your resume. But be concise. We get these resumes all the time. They were a CRA for Covance and then Parkcell and then PPD, and they use the same verbiage under all 3 headers. Why? Because they probably took a job description somewhere and then you've listed out, these are my tasks, right? Now, tasks are important, but you don't want to waste real estate on your resume. You worked at Covance. What kind of study did you work on? What did you help the team accomplish? Okay, we get it. You've done PSVs, SIVs, IMVs, and closeout visits. But what did you accomplish there? It was a unique situation. It was a different culture. What did you do at Parkcell that was different at Covance? What did you do at PPD that was different than both of them? And by the way, if they're not all different, it's all the same, then maybe you don't want to use a typical resume format. Maybe you wanted to use a functional format to where you just state clinical research associate, and then you put the dates of PPD, Parkcell, and Covance, and then under it, then you put the one statement of what you did for all three of them. But don't repeat the same information over and over and over again. You want to show that you're the devil's in the details, and that here's the details of that specific position and what made it different, and what I loved about it and what I helped them to accomplish, because that's really key. But don't mislead. I think one thing that I see a lot is individuals will say on their professional summary, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. And then you go and you start looking at their experience. I was like, okay, well, they're saying they're a clinical research associate, but I don't see where they've monitored anything. We just saw this morning in the morning huddle where someone said they were a senior CRA and that they've been a senior CRA for almost 2 decades. And of course, again, those of you that have gone through our pre-qualification process know we ask, how many SIVs have you done? How many PSSVs have you done? How many closeouts have you done? 10. Okay, so he's been a CRA for 2 decades, but he's telling me he's only performed 10 visits total across 2 decades. I mean, you could do the math, right? I mean, there's no way that's possible. So he's misleading. And so again, you want to make sure you're really crisp and clear, because you can't afford to mislead anyone about your credentials. It is what it is. If you're trying to get the senior CRA position, say it. Bill, I'm ready to do it, and this is why, and explain it, rather than just rather than misleading and saying, okay, I was a lead CRA whenever your title was really a senior CRA. Say you were a senior CRA, but you did lead positions. Very, very important difference here.